Hey, what's up, guys? Chad Hermansen here with Mental Edge Training Coach. Today, I'll be chatting with Ben Rosenthal. Ben is a former high school teammate of mine at Green Valley High School here in Henderson, Nevada. He ended up going to San Diego State for college, had some injuries, some obstacles that he had to go through in his career. And Ben is now the assistant hitting coach for the Boston Red Sox at the major league level. So we're going to hear about his story and how he got all the way up to the big leagues as a hitting coach. So enjoy this conversation with Ben Rosenthal. All right, Ben Rosenthal, what's up, dude? How are you?
I'm great, Chad. How you doing? It's great to see
you. I'm doing well, man. Great to see you too. Tell us where you're at right now.
San Diego, trying to dodge rain bullets. I don't like it.
It's been crazy out here in Vegas too. We're getting the West Coast.
Yeah.
West Coast. Is it dumping everywhere in San Diego?
Yeah. It's coming pretty hard. People don't know what to do. Freak out.
Yeah. I saw there was like a big landslide type thing going on.
Northern California's had some issues for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're out in San Diego. Weather's kind of crazy out there. So your journey didn't start in San Diego, though. You were a Las Vegas guy.
Yes.
Right. We went to the same school in Green Valley, and you're a couple years younger than me. Now, the reason I wanted to bring you on, Rosie, is you are the assistant hitting coach for the Boston Red Sox in the big leagues with some of the top hitters alive right now. We're going to get to that and what that is and what that kind of the routines you guys go through, everything you do. But I want the audience to hear about what it took for you to get to the big leagues as a hitting coach. So we start off with this all the way back to high school at Green Valley. And because you had some obstacles you had to go through. What were those obstacles?
Depends on where you want to strike. You start with the head coach. He's always an obstacle, but a good guy that probably taught me some things that I need to know in life. Being a middle-class kid, decent area, probably beat me up enough to teach me how to fight for some things. Obstacles, even then, like, was never a clear line. I was never Chad Hermansen to say, like, first round pick, everything else. I had to kind of a kid in, as a sophomore, there's catchers in front of me. As a junior, there was always somebody, I was always fighting. It wasn't ever easy. And then, so junior year, played varsity, but was behind a guy. I could swing the bat a little bit, so I'd get in and hit because we were really good. And we'd blow dudes out, and I'd get a couple ABs a game, so I got to play. Mm-hmm. Senior year, it's kind of mine to take over. Same thing, though, kind of like little chip on my shoulder, fighting. It's mine. First AB my senior year, though, I blow out my hip. So kind of shelved for that year, rehab, come back. Play in the state playoffs.
First at bat, your senior year.
First at bat, senior year in high school. Blew out my back hip, basically. About a centimeter off from having pins in it, like just muscle, pulled a chunk of bone off. So miss most of the year, come back, playoffs, win a state title again, go to junior college because missed most of the year. Ended up being a really good decision, probably one of the best coaches ever played for. It was like a professional setting, and it was kind of like, I'd say Fairless kind of grinded me out and toughened me up a little bit, but then Dennis kind of polished it up a little bit to where it was, hey coach, what? No. Hey Dennis, hey player. So, it got to be that first name basis like you would see in pro ball, kind of learning some accountability and responsibility on your own, right? And just little things. I think a huge lesson that he had for me was like a handshake, the importance of that. But even going to junior college, there were definitely obstacles. Same thing, go in, freshman, there's guys there, fight, same thing, could swing it a little bit, got some playing time, DH as a freshman, mine to take over, sophomore, take over, good year, go to D1, go to San Diego State, still in San Diego to this day. First year there, same thing. There's another guy there, coach at junior college. Why do you want to go there? Guy hasn't done anything with the program. I want to go to San Diego. So just get myself there. I'm like, I don't care who's there. I feel like I'm better than them. Play kind of off and on a little bit. First year, second year, again, it's like same kind of story as mine to take. get hurt early in the year, shoulder issue, non-throwing, get hurt early on. This is a shoulder issue, dislocated, non-throwing, but kind of missed that year, had some disagreements with the coach. He's bringing in other guys, etc. So it's okay. I forfeited my next year, no red shirt, finished school, got my close to getting my degree, but knocked out school, rehab, got healthy, still wanted to play. End up finished school, started helping coaching a little bit, friend at high school, catching pens. I end up catching pens for Tom House because he was doing stuff at the school. So now I'm like trying to grind my way back. I'm just showing up and catching pens early just to kind of show him that I would work. I would do whatever because he knows people. Sure enough, kind of just through doing that and being around to get a job playing indie ball. So then I ship off, go play some indie ball for a year. And even that first year was interesting. I started a league in Canada. It folds halfway. I did all right. Another guy knew somebody else. I wound up in another league in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I think the next year I end up signing. So I sign with the Cardinals. I get into affiliated ball. And it's the same thing. I mean, if anybody's familiar with any kind of affiliated ball, especially kind of when we played, you were just kind of a spot to fill, especially probably as a catcher, pens, etc. Spring training. But again, I could swing the pole a little bit. Found myself, made it through camp, go to low A, kind of bounce around, guys get hurt, end up in high A. Not a ton of playing time, but kind of, still learned. Had a really good manager that year in high A, Tom Nieto. Even though I didn't play all the time, kind of showed me how to be ready. When you're not playing, the work that needs to go in for the guy that isn't in there every day, because when you get in there, you got to be ready. So the same thing, just always like an uphill battle. And then next year went back to camp, had a good camp. And same thing, bounced around. It's like they didn't know where to put me, because it's like probably didn't expect me to have a decent camp or do whatever. And I felt like some guys liked me. So I stuck around, broke camp again, went back to high A. And then probably when they crunched rosters in like April or May early, I just decided I didn't want to go on the Phantom. So I took my release, went and played indie ball, got a bunch of ABs. I think I ran across you either that year or the next year. Yeah. So it was either like you were in St.
American
Paul.
Association. You were in El Paso.
Yeah. So I had, now we're like 05. I ended up that part year after my release. And then I went back there. So it's 05 or 06, came across you again. But then did that. And then I was trying to get back into affiliated ball. I think I came across you again in like a Padre tryout, doing the same thing. It just like wanted to keep it going. And like at some point in those couple years of playing, I also started going back to school to get my master's degree. I went to 4-year school to San Diego State with. Just thought it'd be a good idea. When we go to, junior college, when we go back, you want to be a JUCO coach? It's like, yeah, that would actually kind of be ideal. My JUCO coach had a huge impact. 2 years, you can make a difference, teach, like great. And then I started going through it, kind of finishing school. I'm like, all right, these guys don't go anywhere. Oh, all right. And then it's like, oh, you want to make some money, and now you do everything else. Oh boy. But along those lines, I'm learning and I'm seeing things like through school and like the body and moving, and I'm starting to like put these pieces together, my own injuries and history. I'm like, okay, why don't we do that? Or why isn't that? And like, I was just starting to like ask questions in my head.
Right.
And then I got into, just because I had my degree, I would substitute teach or do some like personal training at 24-hour, because they were just easy ends. I had degrees in those areas. So it was an easy way to make money. And so even on both of them, I was like, okay, I definitely don't want to go teach. This is tough. And I definitely don't want to go like try to sell and slang personal training packages to these people here. But the fitness and the like strength and conditioning really piqued my interest, because like I could do that. Like this college coaching thing's tough. I could find a way to parlay the two together, because I have pretty decent knowledge in what the body's doing. So I trained some people, did some of that. Found my way, kind of done playing, out of the game, getting married all at the same time, wanted to coach, but it was like, okay, there's no money, done with a degree, what do I do? I ended up at like a strength and conditioning place Learned a ton there. Then I really started putting everything together. Like these guys, the guy that was in charge was outstanding. He kind of runs Exos' combine stuff now, but he ran track in North Carolina. And so these things, like I started seeing like track, football, some of these sports are way ahead of things, like especially the ones that have Olympic things, weightlifting, like just how they're moving and how they're training. And sure, as I start researching and learning more, I'm like, all right, then I start like trying to pair stuff up. Now I'm thinking baseball, like that makes sense to me. It's basically like how you're seeing guys now, like all the different movement and warm up, and it's not the static movement. You know, it's just, it's all dynamic. It's things that you probably should do. And if you look at it, you're like, yeah, why were we doing that?
Oh yeah.
But, you know, that time is where like things started spinning in my head. It's like, okay, I can do this. And coaching at that point wasn't, I just didn't want to go sit in an office. So it's like, okay, I can do strength and conditioning. This would be cool. And then the same thing, trying to find like that job to support yourself and like have a salary.
You got to pay those bills, like you said.
Yeah. So like even that, it's like, man, I need something full time. Bounced around. End up back in Vegas, working for a family member, you know, I was in like IT staffing. Tried that. Not for me. Experience, but just, you know, the talking and the diving in and like the looking and digging in the resumes, like definitely there was some value in it. Just even understanding like some of the stuff in technology, all the stuff that's used today, all the different codes that people are writing in and doing some of these reports. Like I was looking for database engineers and web developers then. I had no idea really what they were. But now like I can tie all that to baseball. Like, oh yeah, like we have a whole bunch of these people working for our organization because they're necessary. But yeah, I did that, then ended up leaving that and kind of trying to do my own thing, like training and coaching and et cetera. And came across a guy that I basically put on retainer for to train him and some executives, traveled a bunch, and then did that for about a year-ish. And then when I started having kids, when I got back into baseball, because just had another friend of mine that was doing it. He was actually at Faith Lutheran and brought me over, did it. And then that next year I ran into Nick again and found my way back at Gorman coaching. And then a couple years at Gorman, found my way back to San Diego. And like, I can add like pieces to each level of this, because during those like 5 years, so back in Vegas, I had finished my degree. So I had gotten online, like hooked up with a school. And so I was teaching classes online. So I'm like coaching during the day, going home, grinding on the computer, trying to grade papers, you know, writing my like thesis, finished all that. And so I did that for a while. Even when I came back to San Diego, I still had the online teaching thing. So that was good because that provided me like some stability. So I could kind of, now I could start chasing some coaching. So I had made my way back to Vegas, San Diego from Vegas, head high school coach for a year, got us to the CIF finals, but just missed something in the championship game that flipped and took an L, but that's all right, you know. And then I made my way over to Point Loma Nazarene, and I was going on 4 years there, which was a really good spot, good opportunity. Guy let me do what I wanted. Really, with the hitting things, I got to grow a lot. Did a lot of the strength and conditioning there too with the guy that is now the head coach. So it's good. I got to dabble in a lot of everything, and just use all my experiences. And then, you know, now you go somewhere 2017, 16, 17 winter. I was getting to that point again too. It's like, all right, I got to make a living. Like the online stuff had faded.
Right.
So now it's like, okay, what am I going to do? I had built some stuff at the college with the like teams and local stuff. So I had a decent gig going, but it's like, I got to move on or up or start doing something to bring in a better paycheck. And so I just started grinding it out, pulled the baseball like reference, bought that thing, like emailed like hard, sent everybody notes, emails. I got lucky. A friend of mine had the like email chain for everybody. He had played, you know, and so his agent had given it to him because he kind of did the same thing. We went to junior college together, but it was, say it's, you know, Chad Hermansen at Red Sox or C. Like they're all different.
Yeah.
But
Each organization has their own setup, the way they do their
yeah, so I got the cheat code on that, which was good because I was ready to just like, okay, C. Hermansen, Chad Hermansen. I was, ready to lay them all out at whatever I could think of for everybody and send them out. But that helped me send it all out, got some stuff back. And then a guy that I had coached with when I was doing that stuff with Tom House at that high school, he ended up being the pitching coordinator for the Astros at that time. So he ended up like, we were together and I think it might have been 2003 or 4, and he took his own journey. And then kind of we met back up around that time. They had called me. I had ended up talking with him a little bit, reconnected with him, some phone calls, etc. And then they're like, hey, we got a hitting coach job in A-ball. I'm like, okay. He's like, how much does it pay? I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
Like even though you're starting over basically still, right?
Yeah. And the wife's like, okay, 1 year. Like, all right. And now 6 years later, I think.
She said 1 year. What she's like, what does she mean by the 1 year?
Give it a try. Like,
if you like it.
And see if I like it, see if it's worth it. I'm going to be gone. We have 2 kids, money, etc. So that 1 year is now turned into, I did 5 years in the Houston organization. So I went from low A to high A to triple A from 19 to 21, and then got hired with the Red Sox last offseason. And then even like with that half of a line, there was many, I was always just like fighting up. It was never like, man. And some of it was thought, like, why not me? Maybe just stuff wasn't fit, timing, whatever, but maybe it just took me that long to put it all together, just working with different people. But I think like it was, I don't know that there's necessarily specific obstacles, but there were just always obstacles. It was just always like, I felt like it was just always a fight, and like playing wise, you could see it. And I probably could have stuck around. Like if I think back and, maybe I go on the Phantom and I stick around, maybe I end up back on that roster and I still play. But like everything, like that was a good experience for me because once I got back into coaching and in pro ball, like my sights were locked in. Like there was no there was pretty much no getting off path after that first year, when I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm good at this. This org is like a perfect fit for me. I was hired by people that were pretty much just like me, a little bit of playing experience, some knowledge and information and degrees like on the science and sports science side, and just able to pair it up. But it was like, even then, like in that org, it's like I was moving up, but I don't know, maybe it's my thought process. I always felt like, okay, I'm just like almost there. Like, okay, why didn't I get a call for that AA job that first year? Or why didn't I get the call for the hitting coordinator one? But it's like, maybe it's not right there. And now still learning stuff at 43, like having perspective of, what, probably just wasn't the right fit. But those are always obstacles, like even your own mind and thoughts and like how you attack it and how you believe, and like building your own beliefs and like staying true to those. It's just, it takes time. Like everybody, even for players, it's like you arrive at a different time. It just took me a little bit longer and maybe not as straight of a path, but I think I needed that crooked path to like bring that extra bit of value to me. Like just being able to have other experiences. I haven't been in baseball the whole time. I've done some other stuff. I've traveled. I've done some things that guys that have just probably been in baseball I haven't been able to do. So I feel like I have some other experiences, whether it's the staffing or it's the training and traveling and, being involved with golf guys on that end and just little different things.
Yeah. So when you and I hooked back up again here in Vegas, I ended up coaching with you at Gorman for 1 year. One of my best friends, Nick Day, was the head coach at the time. And he kind of knew I was in transition, and he's like, hey dude, come over here. Like, we got Rosie, we got Chris Latham, Mike Dennini came on board at one point for a little while. I'm like, wow, it's a pretty decent staff here. Yeah. And one thing that stood out to me is that we were coached by the same high school coach, Roger Fairless. right? And we kind of had this, he, like, you're right, he taught us how to be tougher, right? We never really experienced that you got to be tough on the field to win type thing. So we had an experience one time. We didn't hit very often on the field as far as batting practice. We kind of very occasionally did, but we spent a lot of time more at the cage or in left field where the batting practice part fences were beyond left field. And one particular day stands out to me. Now, I want to preface this by my only year I coached there. That was Joey Gallo's senior year, right? Joey Gallo, as we all know, is big leaguer, massive power, dude, 6'5", 215, his senior year, just a man amongst boys, right? So an incident happened, and I think you remember what happened. So I'm standing and I'm just kind of helping out. I'm an assistant. You're more Nick's right hand man. Like, you were the assistant coach, and you would run practices, be in charge of that. If Nick was kind of late getting out from his math stuff going on as a teacher, and Joey was doing some stuff one day that you didn't like, right? Do you remember that story and what happened with that? And tell us how you kind of handled Joey Gallo in that situation.
Yeah, I like basically one of those times where you can't be scared and you can't back down, and like it doesn't matter who the player is. It's like sometimes you have to make an example of them, essentially. Sometimes if they are like your dude and your superstar, it carries a little bit more weight. But also on the other end, I think, like, I'll go into the situation, but on the other end, my thought is if I let this keep going, it's gonna do more harm than if I don't do something about it.
Right.
And so it was, I mean, if you're looking back, it wasn't anything huge. It was a kid being a kid and a slight immature moment or whatever. And I mean, who knows if I handled it perfectly either, but he wasn't taking things as serious, and him being the dude is like, he takes on a leadership role, which they do, and they don't ask for it. And that's why, and I know, like, sometimes you feel for those guys, especially in the big leagues, like they don't necessarily always ask for it, but sometimes you're just put in that role and you have to abide by some of these things, right? So whatever he was doing in BP, I didn't like, and he was jerking around, and I was, and I was known for, like, and it wasn't a bad thing, but I'd just take a lap, like, go, like, take the lap, think about it, like, tighten the bolts up, like, go, just see it.
Take a lap.
Yeah.
Take a lap.
Like, and you've been around me, so I can kind of flip it on those guys, especially at that level, but I'm not going to hold a grudge. Like, all right, be done with it and move on. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I tried to implement, like with high school guys, definitely, on a tangent, I didn't ever feel like Fairless would let a grudge go, but I think he did. I just heard of him that he didn't. So I tried to make it a point to, like, if I blew a kid up, to at least go, but I had decent relationships with him. So yeah, whatever I didn't like what he was doing, chirped him, kind of take a lap. And then during this lap was even more of it's like, he can just take the lap and just be done with it. And so there was some barking back and forth. And I think I ended up running the whole team and back and forth, like running him or running the whole team, because he wouldn't do it. And so I think making him watch them run, I think I was trying to create a little bit of animosity to them, but it ended up working out because they did what they needed to do. He kind of locked it back in and joined and did what he was supposed to do and kind of just washed away. But it was just one of those times, like, you have them in life, and it's like what you teach your kids. Like, if somebody's doing that, you need to stick up for that other person, because that's not going to be it. So I felt like I needed to stick up for the whole team right there and not let him get away with doing what he was going to do, because I just saw a harm coming from that. It's like the teaching thing. If you're on the gas early, you can always let off the gas pedal. But if you aren't on that gas, you can't get on that gas pedal later.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think you said, like, you kind of made an example, and I kind of don't remember exactly what happened either, but I think he was goofing around a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Gorman at this time, they're always one of the top teams in the country. This team ended up being the number one team in the country that year. So there's high expectations. And Joey was leading that. And there was other very good D1 ball players that went on from that team. And I think I even remember as he was taking his lap, because BP was continuing and he was like hiding behind players, right? And we saw it. We're like, wow, this is interesting, right? And then I think you eventually like, okay, let's everybody stop. And then you just had the whole team run while he watched, right? So it's kind of like this whole situation where like, dude, you are part of the team. This isn't the Joey show, right? And I bet if you asked him now, he would probably laugh about it, be like, yeah, I was a prick. I was 18 years old. I was immature. I had a lot of stress, a lot of pressure on me, and there could be a whole bunch of things going on. But
I ran into him a couple years later because we had one of his kids
probably laugh about it.
You're not gonna kill me. You don't hate me, dude. So,
it's just one of those things, right? But the precedent was set. Like, dude, we're in this together, and if we're not in it together, then we're gonna have some issues here. And I remember, like, because you were the kind of the disciplinarian and would do the workouts with them, and you would kind of give them the old Green Valley style, like, because I never saw that earlier. I was like, oh, these guys kind of have it pretty easy, right? Compared to the practices we used to have, right, where we would be dying. I was like, wow, this is pretty lackadaisical, but they're so good they were getting away with it, right? So that's good. That I just thought that was an interesting story, and that kind of showed your leadership, in that regard, and it's now got you, probably a part of your character and your process to where you are now. So you were an Astros coach in the minor league, starting to work your way up. I'm curious, what's an interview look like when you're going for a hitting coach job? What are they asking?
They're different. In 16, they were really, I'm trying to think if I even did a Zoom. I think I might have just been all phone calls with the Astros. It was like a couple with the hitting coordinator, one or two assistant GM, and then the like head of minor league ops or whatever, like a couple times. And then I went to breakfast with my buddy that's here, so I think that might have been a face-to-face. But
right,
it was like, I think then it was different than what those interviews are now, because then it was like I was on that cusp of, it was like, okay, I had a degree, like I got baseball, I got some of the like information, I could use video, I could put things together, right? And now like some of that stuff is just like, that's your seat at the table. Like
just
that,
to get that.
That's
like was first requirements.
Yeah, that was kind of like more of a separator then, right? Because I was a little bit different. I wasn't traditional, like I just played, I want to get back in and coach. It was, no, I'm like this part of that new wave where I think there'll be another wave of guys that are similar, but they're going to now have the playing experience under us. And as I get done, it'll be a different wave. So I feel like I just got in at a good time, because now there's going to be players that can pop out and get those entry-level jobs that I might not be able to get. But yeah, so those were calls. And then I think as it's progressed now, like obviously the minor league ones are going to be different than the major league ones. So now like I think that orgs depend. I only have experience on the minor league side with Houston, but even as it went, I know some of the things changed of what we were looking for, and we might have missed a couple of times because they were trying to figure some things out with guys, but it was similar to myself, but knowing, can they use the technology? Can they use some of this like information? Doesn't mean you have to be perfect with it. They're just looking for people that are familiar with it, because a lot of the minor leagues are collecting data and doing stuff on these guys. Right. So it just depends. I think every club's different. Some might just open up Twitter and look for a good handle and cool stuff and hire that guy. Because I think there's a lot of clubs that still don't know what they don't know, and like who they're looking for necessarily. But yeah, I think now, even so, like last year, there were some like questions about analytics, like these are big league interviews, but I think the big league interviews, my content and knowing the swing and knowing the other stuff, that's my seat at the table, right? Like all that other like I've done all the hitting stuff now. So it's like, okay, he gets the hitting. So now it's like, okay, is he a fit on staff? Is he going to be able to handle these players? Is he going to be able to handle just all the other stuff that goes with it? Whereas in the minor leagues, it's more development. It's, can you, this tech, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you handle a group of 10, 12 guys? Can you, all right, you got to do this report. Are you good with Excel? Are you familiar with this?
Mm-hmm.
So just, but that experience and knowing that, to like, even with that, for me, like, you still have to be able to teach or coach to some degree, because it's not all the tech or the data or the info, or just let them play and work it out.
Right.
It's got to be a combination of whatever's going to be better for that player. But yeah, you can use all that stuff. Like, some of the stuff hasn't changed. Some of the thoughts haven't changed that I've had in the past. I'll make some circles back. I'll get caught up in some things. But I think, like, it should still be a foundation of, okay, does this guy fit with your foundation of whatever it is? Great. Doesn't have to be perfect. Is that okay? And then, can they handle this? How do they do with this? Have they ever been in charge of anything? Like, a season in the minor leagues is tough too. So especially if you're going to teach a guy and develop a guy, it's like, when do you push? When do you throttle back? Like, they're going to fail. How much failure do you want? How much? So I went off on a tangent on what I did, but the interview process, I only have those two experiences. So it's tough, but I think some teams, like, especially for the minor leagues, they're looking for people that probably can handle, like, more of the tech and more of the information, and kind of like bundle some of that if they're good. And then there's like got to be the teaching aspect too. So what's your experience in that? Some guys are learning all this tech and the info, but they've never been around in life to teach, or failed enough, or just haven't been around long enough. So it's tough. Like, you hire somebody without that. Okay, can they adapt to this, or can you hire somebody that knows this one? It's tough. I've always felt, though, like, I always tried to be a combination of everything. Even back in the day when I was doing strength stuff, or when I was doing catching stuff with kids or hitting stuff, like, I always just was watching the body and having an idea, and things like that, and watching how they moved, and then building a relationship with them, and then the rest is like easy. But it's like anything, if you don't have a relationship, if I don't have the ability to talk to you freely in a way that you can understand, whether it's humor or sarcasm or just wear you out, then you're not going to improve or be able to get to your best, whatever that might be. That was probably a little bit all over the place.
That's great.
I rolled it because there's only two.
No, that's good. Well, so yeah, because it's, you always kind of wonder, like, what does that even look like? Like, and obviously they're probably asking philosophy questions, like, who have you coached in the past? How would you handle this situation? Things like that.
Yeah.
So I was looking at Boston's you're now the assistant hitting coach with the Red Sox at the big league level. So you're the assistant. Who's the main hitting coach?
So Peter Fatsi is our main hitting coach.
Okay.
A few years younger than me, but very similar background, except he got done playing. He went and opened his own facility and kind of did that.
Right. Okay.
8-10 years or whatever, kind of that little peak where I was bouncing all over. He kind of was doing baseball stuff. And then found himself with the Twins as a coordinator, and then came over to Boston in 20 as an assistant. So then Tim Hires left to Texas last year. Pete got promoted. They brought myself in, and then they brought in Luis Ortiz, who had been with Texas, had been with the Dodgers, has been a coordinator. He's been around a little bit. So a lot of teams are going to 3 guys, just because there's a lot of love needed, and a lot of there's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Preparing the player, like, physically in the swing to the information, and there's just a lot that goes into it, and having 3 guys or more than 2 is just beneficial, especially now, because there's guys that don't want to hit during the game, or that might do something, and now you're not taking bodies away from the dugout that might be able to help with some advanced report or something
Yeah.
else for an AB, but now you have extra bodies that you can kind of move around. So I spent a lot of time in the cage, but it's good. It's raw. Cage is raw. You get to see it, because people outside don't always get to see what
the behind the scenes. Well, I'm looking at, I wrote down a couple names. Obviously, you're with the Red Sox. They're one of the storied organizations, always have great players. So you got, last year, you had Bogarts, Dahlbeck, Hosmer, JD Martinez, Verdugo, Bradley's, Trevor Stories, Fams, all these guys, right?
Ferraris. They're Ferraris. You got a bunch of Ferraris right there.
Bunch of Ferraris. Yeah. And so, number one, you brought up the point of, now we have an assistant hitting coach, and now even sometimes 3, which I'm like, it's almost like in college. Like, why are we waiting so long to pay volunteers or assistants? Like, these teams and these kids in college, they need these extra guys, right? They need to be around. There can't just be one guy.
Quality.
So it makes total sense to, like, no, we need bigger staffs to accommodate. Otherwise, you're just standing in line, waiting to hit, with one guy. Or so it makes total sense at the professional level. Like, why are we not investing in more guys, getting different thoughts, getting different opinions, right? Because I certainly, probably like you might not necessarily gel with just the one guy you have, or he's not giving you anything, or he has no information for you. So what are those? So you mentioned, so during the games, right, with your role and position, you say you're in the cage quite a bit during the game.
Mm-hmm. So from everything from somebody wants to get loose to straight panic at the disco, because you've seen it, what I'm talking about. But like, the range is huge. So it might just be, guys have different routines. JD stays pretty consistent. I mean, the guy, it's impressive. He swings most of the game. But one thing, like, I give him credit for is his ability to be objective, and his results is like, detailed as he is, and like grindy as he is on his swing and his approach and everything he does. He could go out and be looking for something and look like a fool, and maybe he chased and did it. I could have said something to him. Never would he ever come back and chirp me or blame me, or get mad. He'll get mad at himself for doing something, but he'll get mad, he'll move on, whatever it is, and he'll objectively, he can look at the video, boom, 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 address it. Okay, I need to work on this. But he will not live in, even if he's 4 for 4, he's still working. If he's 2 for 2, he's going into his third AB. Like, he's working and he's consistent with that. It's super impressive to see, just because a lot of guys, even at that level, still will live and die by their results. It's like, they might be, if you're 1 for 1, you go, if you're going into your second at bat with a hit, you're having a different at bat.
Right.
You're going into your third at bat with 2 hits or even 1 hit. You're still, like, it's different versus going into your third at bat. Now you're 0 for 2, or you're going into your fourth at bat and you're 0 for 3. So you, like, just even scenarios like that, you can get the guy like JD, it doesn't really matter, and he might be in there and just, he's sticking with it and doing his thing. Or you might get a guy that just is like, he's chasing hits. And as much as we all know, it's hard to just chase hits. Some guys have a knack for hitting. Like Bogarts has just got a knack to get hits. It's impressive, He's also got pop. And so for him, he's like a little bit not as, doesn't hit as much. Sometimes he might chase hits or do some things or look at something, but he can move on pretty quick as well. He can go, he can have an idea, he can go, he might get mad, do whatever. Maybe he might be influenced more on the offer versus something else and thinking something, but it creeps into all of them at some point. But for the most part, they're able to, like, take a couple swings, get whatever they need to get, move on. All right, this guy's doing what to me? Okay, I got to go. So it might vary. A guy might come in also in the game and they're going to bring relievers in. Like, that's the good stuff, is now they start coming in fourth inning, you get your bench guys start moving around. Some guy might take a couple flips in like the fourth, and then in the fifth, he might do some darts or he might hop on some machine, so guys will the build up, and it's tough in Boston. We only have one cage on the home side because it's just old and tiny.
Yeah.
So it's tough, the traffic, but it works out. Guys get feel for, who's playing, when they're not, when they're coming in. If certain guys like to take a swing before they're AB, whatever it is. So then you just kind of move it around, move with the flow, watch the game a little bit. Guy will come in. Lefties come in the game. We'll usually at home have a lefty BP guy. So he'll either come in, a guy might want a couple tosses, or they might just want a machine. Everybody's a little bit different. But yeah, like you just see so many different things during the game down there, and how they do it. And some of them they might make an adjustment too. Like that's what else is cool is like the Ferrari, you just might need to like switch that plug over just a tick and it fires again. They're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Okay, good. And they're like, then they're free. Mm-hmm. So it's busy. It gets busy.
Yeah, I got it.
But it can be fun down there. It can be grindy and tough, and everything that the game is, because you're living it with those guys. So they're struggling, you're struggling. Sometimes you feel it with them, but trying to make sure that they're in a good spot to go compete. Sometimes it's like, dude, just go, let it rip. Like, get out of your own way. Go, get out of here.
Get out of your own way. Yeah. What are you seeing? Because you've now experienced a lot of minor league hitters that probably maybe a lot of them are even done playing. They just didn't get past a certain level. Now you're dealing with Ferraris on the Red Sox, these guys that are just ridiculous. Now, a lot of them, like there's physical ability, right, and capability.
Yeah.
What are you seeing differences in the mental side of their approaches?
I mean, that's usually it. It's like those are the separators, is being able to adjust.
The adjustments.
Making adjustments. So like the really, 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 really elite ones, right? Like they make them, like they might make it in a pitch.
Yeah.
Another one might make it in a bat. Like another one might make it in a game. But then it's like you have like, how can I need to do this here, but when I'm up here, they're doing this to me. And then it's like, how do I adjust to survive? Trying to just get my brains together real quick. But it's their ability to deal with like the failure and come out of it, or understand like, okay, I am all right, or I belong here, or that was a good AB. There's it's most of it though, like the separator is mental, whether it's like, okay, this guy's doing this, I just got my doors blown off for 4 ABs on fastballs up. Okay, now it's a new series, I'm going to change my swing. What are you doing? Why?
Right. Why are we changing the swing?
Right? Yeah, like that team just attacked you a certain way. That's a weakness of yours. Like, it's not a swing thing. Whereas maybe a more veteran guy might just be like, all right, that series is over. Thank God. I'm going to move on. Like, they just torch me up here. I can't get whatever it is, right? Like, just being able to do that and know that, okay, I have this much like time in the year.
Yeah.
Like, one little bit isn't going to kill me.
Question on when you say like someone might change their, like maybe it's my swing, would you say that's more in relation to my swing path? Like it's getting too flat, too steep, too uphill?
Yeah, essentially. Like if they're trying to usually tinker with something, they're trying to tinker with their path, etc. Like if they're getting blown up, maybe a guy's getting blown up top and he might do something, or he's just hitting on a machine for whatever, but neck balls to try to, some other guys maybe go and like completely change a hand position or do something else. But some guys operate like that. Some guys don't, you know what I mean? Like some guys are always tinkering a little bit. Some are just go, but I think like the young ones is where it's important to teach them and to get them to learn early. I think that's where was helpful for me is like all the minor leaguers that I dealt with. And then even being in AAA, they were coming back and down. But now being in the big leagues, these guys are coming up. So I've been in kind of a place to like understand what they need to do as they're going. But now I've seen them from like go away from me up, but now I'm accepting them as they're coming up. So I can help them with some of that transition, you know, versus like they were doing this here, you need to do this. Okay, now they need to do this. Yes, okay, but I get it. You need to be here at like 1 o'clock because they show up at 3. Like you have to get this in here, right? To be done. So they're still teaching, even when they get to the big leagues. Like it's hard. Like the levels, you know, it's probably, I'd say it's probably a bigger gap now than when you played between AAA and the big leagues.
Right.
I would guesstimate. I don't know, like there's probably a number out there that can compare it, but just I feel like COVID might have kind of pushed some of that. You get guys going quick, you miss a year, kind of some level ups for no reason. There's some stuff gets sped up on some guys. But yeah, like the being able to like separate their failure, and some days are just bad days, but not like ability that's the difference maker. Yeah. And then the elite, like they take that and they do the work and they do everything else. And it's like no question when a ball does something and they make a crazy play, like he's been ready for that for months. But it looks like he rolled out of bed. That's also the guy that's a first ballot, right? Like he's maybe in the Hall of Fame. But then you have your all-stars, and then you have like
different levels at the big league level.
Yeah, most of the big leaguers are just like, can they stick around?
Right.
Like X% of all-stars and then superstars, and it's like that's still probably less than 50%.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's what's always fascinating me, that like even you're at the highest level, there's still there's your Barry Bonds, right? Then there's different levels of elite Hall of Famer, even Hall of Famers. There's different levels, probably, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that interesting that with the different levels of there's even different levels in the big league. So which is kind of cool, right? That it just shows you like there's that many good players that even if you're just average, like tools wise, right? When you kind of get on the scouting side of things, it's still like, man, you're a 50 and all these things, but even 50 is a pretty good player, right?
Average major leaguer, right?
Yeah, average major leaguer is really good, right?
Yeah. People like lose track of that. It's like, oh, he's a 50. Yeah. Now that's a major league number we're looking at. Like,
right.
Not everybody is a 80, you know.
Yeah.
Even on the scouting, that was something I like in the development, just to like piggyback on that. You can see it in guys as they progress. Like he might have been a 50 power, but he's now 2 years older, more mature, a tick stronger, and now he's like a 65 power.
Yeah.
What happened? So it's like understanding some of that too, like what you can develop, what your trade-offs are in some of these things.
Yeah. What's I know, like you mentioned JD Martinez, like one of those guys that kind of reinvented himself, right? He came up, I think he was with the Astros for a little while. Tigers,
hit like 8,000 homers in that month with Arizona, and got that.
Yeah, and kind of, but kind of went to a guy, I don't know who he went to, but kind of reinvented his swing, right? Has he ever talked to you about that, like the changes he made there?
Yeah, the guy that he saw, I had seen for a few times, like back in the day when I was playing. So I was familiar with kind of what that guy was doing. So yeah, we had talked about it a little bit, and it's kind of out there too, but he put a ton, like I think early on he spent a bunch of time like working on lower half stuff and trying to dial that. Like it was a process for him for sure. And then once he got that thing dialed, then it was like kind of like the upper body, and he dove into the path. But he's super detailed with everything, and they speak a language that's unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It took a little while, but like how he says some things, I'm like, okay, I can understand that. Like, I might not say it like that. I might not say it like this guy says it, but it makes sense to me. Like, these things are happening. These are little markers that I look for in a swing. They're happening. It doesn't really matter how you describe it, as long as you and somebody else understand it, and then you can communicate it, and then somebody like myself or another hitting coach can like mesh that thought or speak that language and transfer like my thoughts into his language.
Right.
That's essentially what you're doing anyway when you learn these guys, is what cues work best for him. What can I do with this guy? Is he just like, hey, he throws 95 and he throws a fastball and a curveball, and he likes to throw his curveball with 2 strikes. Okay, go ahead. Other guys might want more specific counts. Like, they might want the specifics on the pitch characteristics. They might want, specific counts. It just depends on, each guy. But then how you deliver it is different too. If he needs to be looking out over the plate and think about doing this, it could be completely different cue than what I need to tell you, because you don't handle certain things. So I might not tell you to look up here because you're going to get torched.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like, you got to look like a little bit lower. Like, your top is just going to be different than my top. Like, my top, I might have to look at my neck, and it might be look at your belly, just as a visual, but it's learning those guys, and you learn their strengths, and you learn their weaknesses, you learn their language. And I know my language, but that's fine. But I can go, okay, yeah, do that. Yep, do that.
Okay.
That comes with like just learning people. That's what was tough last year with that lockout, is I didn't get a chance to build some rapport with guys early. So it took a while.
Yeah. So do you definitely find that there's guys like during games, like you mentioned, you're in the cage a lot during the game. Is there those guys that are definitely, they need info, they want video right away, as opposed to a guy like, hey, I don't want any of this stuff. It's just getting in my mind and in my head.
You got a big mix of it. You have some guys, and I would say a majority probably are better with less.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some, like JD can take it all in, and there's some guys that can, but I think majority do better keeping it simple, like figuring out how to break it down to 1 or 2, or at max like 3 thoughts as they're going out there. It's like, you're on this heater in this spot and trying to hit it here.
Right.
That's it.
Simplify as much as you can.
Yeah. And those 3 things cover 8,000 things, but they don't have to think about 8,000 things. It's just, you're on time for that, and you're looking here, and then that's it. And then, if it works, great. Or they come back and it's like, okay, what happened? I'm like, were you on time? They go, yeah. I was like, was it a good pitch? Like, no. What are we talking about? And that is across the board. I've had that. I was in the minor leagues, and I'll still do it now.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to talk about. Like, you were late, so now I don't care, because you're late, and your body, your swing, you're going to do something to compensate, and it's like, yeah, you're late, and you hit it straight up. Okay.
Speaking of being late, is there, as a coach, do you find that everyone like loads or gets ready pretty much the same, or is there some different movements and thoughts there?
Timing is the hardest thing. It's like to cue, because you could say early, because you might take, let's say you take X amount of time for your move. I might take slightly less time, or whatever it is. Like, the times are probably still within a range, but like the initiation of everything to get to a certain spot, or maybe you're a guy that goes no stride to a leg, like a Bryce. Maybe you have 3 options. You might adjust it slightly depending on what you're doing. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have a feel like I call it an internal clock.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to figure out like how to get it going. Sometimes like earlier doesn't always work, because like you and I both know, it's like sometimes it's got to be so uncomfortable that it works. And it's like, yeah, I felt like I started yesterday. I'm like, I know.
I was waiting too long.
Yeah.
But then you're on time, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting the feel for all that.
Yeah. So they'll come in, they'll want everything, you know? So, but I tried to make it a point, like as I gained more and more of my voice, was like, if you're not on time and if it's not a good pitch, there's nothing to talk about. I don't even want to look at your swing because we have video. It's like, what are we looking at? You just freaking went fishing 4 times. Like,
Yeah.
no. Well, I
It's
can
not
hit
your
that.
swing.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like,
your
no,
swing's fine.
I can hit that. Yeah. You might have hit like 5 homers in your career on neck up and in.
Right.
That's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Where is damage? You can go across any chart anywhere. Like most dudes are going to damage in the middle, and then it shifts just based on individual swing and some stuff, right? But
Yeah.
like, don't make mistakes. That's what you tell them. Or when you're in the, they capitalize on mistakes. But yeah, guys will come in. They'll want video. They might just want a flip or two. They might have, starting catcher at home goes out, catches. He might just run in for 5 swings, some flips right before he takes his first AB, just to, feel the swing again, whatever
Loosen
it is.
it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys will want, okay, look at the video, like, great. Or we'll have video of the opponent. So if guys coming in, guys will want the video. We'll usually have an analyst in there sometimes with us. So we'll go scouting report. But they all want different stuff too, even on the scouting report, like I was saying earlier. So it's just like knowing who needs what, or like when to give them the time of day, or when they don't, or when you need to cut them off, or when you need to be like, all right, this is going to do more harm than good. No, it's not going to happen.
Get out of there.
Yeah. Stop.
You're taking 1,000 swings already.
Yeah, just go sit in the dugout and watch the game. Like,
yeah,
it's still, even in the big leagues.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because it's not easy.
Yeah, well, and like you said, like it's getting even more difficult, right? It's these pitchers they're all throwing 95 plus, like 95s almost seems like it's becoming closer to average now. Right now we're getting over triple digits, and the training is got to be different. Like you said, you find that a lot of guys are working off machines with high velocity up in the zone.
Yeah, we'll get a variety of everything. Guys will do velo, breaking balls. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Everybody's different. Some guys, like even the same, like I've come across guys. I was in the big leagues in 20 with Houston for a little bit during COVID. So like even there, I've come across guys in both orgs that like they could hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and I could just flip to them, and then they could go hit a 95-mile-an-hour heater. Like they just know how to be on time for a heater, like whatever it is. Like they just need to get loose. They know the mechanism. If it's 90, I need 98, and it's got some of this at the top. Like they know. Other guys might need to get on it and like hit some velo and go. And they're all, some of it's feel, some of it isn't. Some guys will hit a breaking ball because that puts them in a better spot. And so they'll just hit breaking balls prior to something. Like some guys will hit angle stuff. It just, they're so different, on what they're doing. But yeah, you'll see a lot of machine. You'll see, like, because you have all these crazy machines now. So you'll see the ones that'll throw combinations, like the sequences of pitches and some stuff like that. So we'll get some guys doing it. And then there's some balls that are a little more forgiving too, that some guys will use, so they're not blowing their hands out on a 95 on a machine that when, sails.
A little softer.
Yeah. Some guys like, it's just, they're all a tad different.
Yeah. Well, that's that's probably got to be the fascinating part of your job, is learning everyone. They are a little bit different. What clicks for one guy, what doesn't, and probably taking tedious notes or in your memory bank or even on paper, and learning that whole. Because I think that's what makes it a good coach is you know how that guy works, right? The intangibles of his swing, whether he's a little bit more uphill or he's a little bit steep or flat, right? All these things that, they're not all the same.
No. Yeah. And it's like, why are you comparing yourself to him? You don't do anything like him. Right. He's my favorite player. Well, it's good, but your favorite player, but don't comp yourself to him because you don't move anything like that. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know that is the best for you. So even then it's like steering guys away, or, finding the opportunities to talk to them about little things here and there. But I think it's always just being ready. And it's like, it's always being prepared. right? So if you come to me like, we got Rosie, I'm like, actually, this, and this. Like, oh man, yeah, man, why didn't you tell me that earlier? Like,
you holding out info on me, right?
Because you didn't want to hear it until you asked me. Like,
that's right.
Trevor Story said something like that, like along the same lines this year. It was some joke, like something. He's like, why didn't you tell me that earlier? Like, seriously?
Yeah. Now he was the guy that got locked in like later in this past year, right?
Yeah, he got hurt, but like he's tough year for him. Just it was lockout, and then he signed late. Then he had a baby, and then he got like sick at the beginning of the year. He was fighting uphill all year.
Yeah,
but he like did awesome, super pro, continued to work. Even like to the end. And then kind of came back, was good. Then kind of a little freak thing on his heels. So he'll be good next year. He's like, he gets after it. He'll work. He'll ask me questions. He'll ask, our other hitting coach. So he tries to get as much as he wants to get the info and pick each of our brains a little bit different. And, he gets it and he'll go out there and do his thing. But again, like watching him move around and watching these guys do stuff, and like you listen to them talk, and it's like, okay, yeah, he doesn't want any of that, so he's like, he's in this category, and this guy's in this category, and you just figure it out.
That's cool, man.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. So we'll wrap this up here with maybe some advice. What would you, as far as you've coached at all levels now, right? Say we got some amateur players, high school, college type level that might be listening to this. What type of advice would you want to give them at the high school, college level?
Play the game, play baseball, and like watch the game and play the game. Like the tech and all that is still great, and I still use it, but learn the game and learn the speed of the game and learn how to play the game without using all of that stuff. Because there might be a time when you don't have it. Like if you rely on hitting with hit tracks all the time, there might be a time when you don't have it. You might have to dial your swing in without that piece of tech. Or you might have to get a pitcher that you've never seen before, and you might have to like figure it out really fast and not have all that information. So all the new stuff is good, but learn the game and play the game. And like be aware of the game, because it's still baseball, and it's like you can look across the board, like guys that can run still have value, right? Guys that can do this still have value. Like just learn your value and learn your value in the game, and then play the game. Love it.
Love it. Maybe watch a game, right?
Yeah. And don't be scared. Don't be scared.
Yeah, either way. Don't be scared. Like, okay. Well, Rosie, dude, I'm rooting for you, man. It's so cool that you're literally in the big leagues, as a hitting coach, and and just I appreciate you sharing your story, where you started, now where you are, and I would assume, like, as the assistant hitting coach, at some point you might get offered that position of the main guy, if you will. That next, be the goal. Yeah, that's the goal, right? That's the goal. So.
If we keep winning World Series, I'll stay as the third guy too.
Yeah. I'll settle for that.
We gotta get out of the AL East cellar though. Oof, that's a tough.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Well, Rosie, appreciate you coming on board. Make sure you guys follow Rosie. Where can they follow you at? Are you on the Twitter machine? All that stuff?
I'm kind of not really. I don't know if they can follow me. They can follow the Red Sox.
Follow the Red Sox. Okay.
Follow the Red Sox. Follow our hitters.
You're kind of low key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably could have been super rich if I would have started putting all my stuff out there 20 years ago.
Right.
Oh, goodness, I was doing that a while ago.
I hear you. All right. Well, awesome, dude. Appreciate you coming on board, and I will see you soon, bud.
Good catching up with you. Take care.
Okay.
Tell family, tell your brother, tell your parents, everybody I say hello.